Just when I thought my dream iPhone SE was in the works, Ross Young crushes my dreams because he says, no, we're still going to see a 6.1-inch LCD iPhone SE for launch, and so let's delve into it. So in case you weren't aware, there's been some not so credible leaks regarding the iPhone SE4 being based on the iPhone 13 mini. Now this sounded absolutely perfect because Apple would finally be giving us the mini size at a sub $500 price, and clearly the price was the biggest issue with the mini because $439 refurbished 12 minis sold out within a day, so clearly there is a market for these mini smartphones. The price was just too high for them, so of course turning them into an SE model instead made complete sense. But I guess that was too good to be true because credible source Ross Young now tells us that no, we're going to see a 6.1-inch LCD panel with the SE instead. Now this does align with what Jon Prosser told us because he said it would be based on the iPhone XR, which of course is exactly what Ross Young describes. However, I do want to mention that's interesting. Ross Young initially told us we could see a 5.8-inch LCD iPhone SE instead, with a dynamic island on the front. Yes, Ross Young actually thought we would see the island on the SE, which kinda makes no sense because we just got the island with the 14 Pro series. It hasn't even come down to the regular models, and so why would Apple give it to the SE? That makes no sense. And I'm not sure why Ross even thought that was going to be the case. And yes, I know there's been rumors regarding hole punches, but I doubt Apple's going to do that because they want the iPhone to stand out, and so I definitely think there's going to be a notch on the front. But anyways, I'm disappointed by this because the iPhone XR design's pretty old as is, but in 2024 that's going to be archaic and the bezels are not going to look good. But also the mini size is more compact, and originally the SE was made for those who prefer smaller phones, and so yes, it's not great such a massive phone is going to be the SE4 because that's going to put off some consumers. And also logistically wise, I do have some doubts because the iPhone XR has not been produced for years, the iPhone 11 just got discontinued, and so by 2024, these products would not have been in production for quite some time, and that does defeat the purpose of the SE because it's a recycle bin device. It borrows parts from iPhones in circulation, so the fact the XR and the 11 are no longer produced does make me doubt we're going to see this form factor for the SE4. I mean, do remember the SE1 was based on the 5S, Apple was still selling. The same goes for the SE2, that was based on the iPhone 8 that was still in production, and the SE3 also technically was based on the SE2 that was already in production, so the SE4 needs a design that's already in production, and that applies to the Mini, not the XR or the 11, so yes, I'm praying this leak is false. And yes, I know in certain countries, Apple does continue to produce older iPhones. For example, in India, Apple does keep around older models as cheaper offerings, and so it's a possibility the XR and the 11 are being produced in specific parts of the world. But again, I do have my doubts, and maybe it's just me wanting the Mini design instead, but I doubt we're going to see the XR design for the SE4. Really, the only pros with the XR design for us is of course a low price. It should be $399 again, which is a decent price. And also for those who have problems with OLEDs and PWM, of course Apple offering an LCD panel instead in the iPhone range is going to benefit those consumers. But to be honest, Apple's OLEDs have become more bearable for those who do suffer PWM, and also of course I'm willing to pay a high price for the Mini design. So yeah, there really are no benefits to the XR design. I do think this should not happen. Anyways, much like previous reports, there is also talk about Touch ID coming to this iPhone SE instead, and not Face ID. Now this actually does make sense because, as I've said in the past, Apple does differentiate their low-end and high-end products with Touch ID and Face ID. So of course, in the iPad range, we have the iPad Air, the Mini, and the budget iPads using Touch ID, but only the Pros get Face ID. And in a similar way, the current SE has Touch ID, but of course, the higher-end iPhones have Face ID instead. And so yes, it definitely makes sense Apple wants to continue doing that and create a separation between the low-end and the high-end, and upsell consumers to the higher-end models with Face ID. Then again, there are some who prefer Touch ID, so again, for that market, having an iPhone in the range that offers it is going to be appreciated. I do wonder what's going to happen to the notch though, because obviously it won't be housing any true depth sensors. it's just going to be housing the front-facing camera, so of course, the iPhone XR and 11 notch are pretty ginormous, and that space is going to be redundant. Now, of course, there is a possibility we get the iPhone 13 notch instead, but honestly, I kind of do see Apple just making this iPhone SE4 look worse and keeping that bigger notch. And by the way, in case you are curious, the Touch ID sensor is going to be on the side of the device, integrated in the power buttons like the iPads. And yeah, this does make sense, and I do prefer it over in-display technology instead. And finally, Gurman does tell us we're going to see Type-C with the SE, which again makes sense, considering it's now EU law to give us Type-C on devices by 2024. So yes, I'm sure the SE4 is going to get this. Anyways, let's delve into your comments. So Quandy says, will this have the A16 Bionic? And yes, I do think that's going to be the case, considering the regular iPhone 15 models should get the upgrade to the A16 chip, and so the SE4 should follow suit. So Setra says, what's going to be the release date for the new SE? Now this should be early 2024, so either expect a March event or press releases in March for this SE4. So Aman Gupta says, 10R design, squared edges, LCD screen, A15 Bionic, 399. And while parts of that I don't think are going to be the case, particularly squared edges, Apple's not going to redesign the chassis of the XR. The whole point of the SE is to recycle all the designs without changing one single thing about them. So of course, it's either going to get the rounded edges of the XR design or get the mini design instead with the squared edges. But there's definitely not going to be a hybrid design of sorts where Apple combines the XR and the squared edges. That's not going to be the case. However, the other predictions could be right. So Pepita Chip says it's going to be the 12 mini, not the 13 mini, and I doubt that because the 12 mini has been killed off. And as I said before, Apple does base iPhone SE designs on chassis they currently produce, and that only applies to the 13 mini that of course Apple still sells. That's again why I do have my doubts about the XR becoming the SE4, but let's see what happens. Anyways, that's about it, but of course, tell me your thoughts regarding these reports in the comments. Anyways, thank you for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumors. Check out the link above on details regarding the iPhone 15 series, and on that note, see ya peeps.